Good everything. Hey, Dr. Carr.
Hey, my dear, beloved Professor Karen Hunter. I know you're not feeling the best this morning.
That's all right. It's okay. We're here. We're here. Episode 224 on Octavia Butler's birthday on the
Gosh,
24th. 224. Also,
come
Willie
on.
Mays. There's a lot of I had a numerologist on the show yesterday and it was weird. It was Foolishness Friday. So we just but he said some things had me intrigued. I was like, because then he brought up God and I was like, how does that work? But
Interesting.
all things, right?
All things. Yes, it's been quite a few days since we were all together in this space. Um, the timing is really something for Willie Mays to make Willie Howard Mays Jr. Apparently, his father, Cat Mays, Willie Howard Sr., was named for William Howard Taft, the president. And it's quite something for him to make transition on Tuesday night and then to be feted in his native Birmingham area. He's raised in Fairfield, Alabama, which is just a little south, I think, southwest of Birmingham. And very telling for Willie Mays. If I were at uh, home, I would ring the bell. And I didn't bring the bell with me, knowing I was going to be here today. I came south, not that far from the field, Rickford Field, there in Birmingham, where um, became Willie Mays Tribute Day, the Negro Leagues game that was played between the St. Louis Cardinals and the San Francisco Giants on Thursday. Major League Baseball congratulated itself for being kind to American Negroes. We're going to pack a lot in and get out of here in short order today. But I came south for a ribbon cutting, something called Pittsburgh Days in History. You're all invited. This is the flyer. You're invited. Pittsburgh Days in History. There was a mural unveiled. The City of Atlanta, the Park Service here in Atlanta has completed a mural outside the center in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a community of African people not far from the Atlanta University Center campuses that came into existence as a formal kind of gathering of Africans in the 1860s. These Africans, formerly enslaved, some prior to the end of the Civil War, congealed in this neighborhood, which is walking distance, as I said, from the AUC. And it takes its name from the convergence of several railroad lines. And those railroad lines were staffed by stockyards by Africans who worked in that neighborhood. And it takes its name, I think, the East Tennessee Railroad, the Virginia Railroad, the Georgia Railroad, but it takes its name from Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. Given the fact that all the soot and all the grime and all the things that the residents had to endure reminded them of the people who had been to Pittsburgh outside of Georgia and back of Pittsburgh. That's why they called it that. But it ended up being, and it's still a very vibrant black community, although as you can imagine, the colonizers, to borrow from Black Panther and Kendrick Lamar, the colonizers are descending. You see all these new houses being built and rehabbed, and we know it's not us. But it's very interesting because the mural that was unveiled on Thursday afternoon at the Pittman Park Recreation Center tracks many of the major figures of Pittsburgh, and there are major figures. Uh, Carrie Steele, who in the 1880s, 1886, 1887, and then incorporated, formalized in 1888, created a home for Black orphans. It's called the oldest home for directly for Black orphans in the United States. That home, two of the former residents of that home, twin boys who are now in their 80s, were present at the mural unveiling. So it's quite something. Sarah Lowry, Lowell Vaughn, the great Dr. William Krogman. William Henry Krogman was the first black president of Atlanta University. Well, now Clark Atlanta University. He was a black classicist, studied the European classics, had a PhD, brilliant educator, and there's the elementary school named for him, William Krogman, which was approved by the city of Atlanta in 1920. It was the first public school, elementary school in the state to be targeted and dedicated exclusively to black students. And Krogman, the building is still there. It's now a senior facility. And on the mural, the specific reason I came is because our Bible Mariba Kelsey was honored. His 99th birthday is today. And so everybody's saying happy birthday because he's one of the people on the mural. You can imagine that. So he gave a very stirring speech. In fact, you see there, Dr. Richard Mariba Kelsey, featured in the mural, will be presented with a proclamation from the city in celebration of his 99th birthday. So, you can't miss nothing like that. So I came down, but it's very interesting. On the way down, as we talked briefly on Wednesday, Professor Hunter there on your show, on the Karen Hunter show on Sirius, I was traveling down by bus. Don't worry, I could have come another way, but I like riding the bus because it allowed me the opportunity. Hadn't been planned in advance, but Willie Mays obviously making transition. I packed several of the books and there's some books I don't keep. I kind of keep around that aren't in storage, and I think I showed you all a few weeks ago. Say Hey, the autobiography of Willie Mays. This is his autobiography. This was written in the late 80s, 1988, with the assistance of Lou Sahadi, who wrote a number of sports biographies, co-wrote. And so it's a very personal story Willie Mays tells of himself. And I was glad I didn't put this in storage. I have a hardback copy of this, but I had a paperback that wasn't in storage. It's called Willie's Time, a memoir of another America by Charles Einstein. And it's very interesting because what he does in this book, as you'll see here, this is published in 1979, he goes through Willie Mays' life using the spine of 5 U.S. presidents: Harry Truman, Eisenhower, John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, and Richard Nixon. And he talks about how Willie Mays becomes the central icon. It was Simon and Garfunkel who made famous the line in their song, Mrs. Robinson. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? The nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Not all the nation. In fact, DiMaggio was the sports hero in San Francisco when he played for the San Francisco Seals. On Thursday night in Rickford Field, the San Francisco Giants wore the uniform of the San Francisco Seals, which was a minor league team that DiMaggio played on. His brother Dom and others played on. And DiMaggio was the hero, was the baseball hero in San Francisco. And of course, he played for the New York Yankees, number 5 for the New York Yankees for many years. He had 1 year overlap with Willie Mays, 1951, when Mays came to the Polo Grounds for the New York Giants. And when the San Francisco Giants were created and the New York Giants moved west, Horace Stoneham, the owner of the Giants, having signed Mays years before, moved west, Willie Mays had to be accepted by the fans in San Francisco. It's very interesting, that whole history. But Einstein, what he does is say that Mays is the figure that opens up the country, the whole country, to professional sports. When you think about it, are you overstating that? No, not really. Because remember, the West Coast had no teams. And the formal integration of professional sports took place after Major League Baseball. And within a 5-year period, you got Major League Baseball integrates. Well, Major League Baseball lets black players play that they know are black. Before that, you spoke Spanish maybe, or call yourself Indian, you might be able to slip in. But they did that. Then the National Football League, and then the National Basketball Association. Basketball was 1950. And of course, we know from the Midwest, the Minneapolis Lakers eventually go out to Los Angeles, and the rest is history. But Mays, with the Giants going west, opens up the concept of the entire United States of America being open to professional sports. Remember, Jack Robinson didn't go. on the eve of the Dodgers going to Los Angeles. The Dodgers, who had arguably the most popular outside of Willie Mays black players at the time, not only Jack Roosevelt Robinson, but Don Newcomb, uh, the great catcher, um, Afro Latin catcher. I see his face. It'll come to me in a minute. But at any rate, they went west. But Robinson, they threatened to trade Robinson to the Giants and Campanella, Roy Campanella. They, no, Italian, not Puerto Rican, Italian, Afro Italian. Anyway, he was like, I'm not going to, I'll retire. And Robinson retired. Willie Mays is the one who became the incandescent star over there on the left coast. And it's very interesting because Mays also tracks in Willie's time, the book Willie's Time. What Charles Einstein does is trace how the country changed during Willie's time, how Willie Mays is at the center of this. Again, there's always this attempt by the social structure to juxtapose black folk and put them in beefs or put them in contradistinction. So whereas Jack Robinson was very vocal, very political, very open about his politics and about what he thought of your politics, in contrast, Willie Mays was not open like that. And so we have to read Willie Mays through his play. And so, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are, and then over the course of the week as you're watching this, the question I want to raise for a few minutes is, what makes a giant? Did I bring mine? Oh, yeah. See, y'all know, those of you who know me, you see me out in the streets, I like baseball caps, and I always wear baseball caps. And I have to track these down now because Lid stopped making them. This is the Giants baseball cap. I wear this a lot. This be my hat. I really wear my hat. And how many times, I've lost track of the number of times people say, oh, you're a Mets fan. No, it's not the Mets. What do you mean? This is black and orange. This is the New York Giants. This is Willie Mays. And the minute you say, oh, this is Willie Mays, they say, oh, yeah. Although, of course, the orange from the New York Mets was taken from the Giants when they moved to San Francisco. And then the blue from the New York Mets was taken from the Dodgers when they moved to Los Angeles, because Horace Stoneham is the one who approached Walter O'Malley and was like, look, man, I'm going over there. You should go too. And O'Malley tried to get, if he had been successful, Brooklyn would still have the Dodgers because he was going to get a dome stadium built. But he clashed against the master insane builder of New York. That would be Robert Moses, who wasn't feeling it. So Brooklyn, y'all had the Dodgers because Robert Moses pissed O'Malley off, and he was like, F it, I'm just going to hit the Chavez Ravine. They're going to welcome us out there. And that's how you get the Dodgers and Giants on the West Coast. But
Dr. Carr, Moses, that he was the racist architect of
yes,
the inner cities.
Yes, the racist architect, the father of hip hop, I suppose. No, I say that because, of course, Jeff Chang and Can't Stop, Won't Stop, and so many other people write about how, as you know better than I do, Robert Moses is the one who put that Tri-Borough Expressway in and ran those highways through and basically destroyed the Bronx. Yes. And then from there, of course, black folk moving in, Afro-Latinos, immigrants from the Caribbean, and those were the conditions that created the youth formations that created what we know as hip hop. So in some ways, if white folk want to take credit for hip hop, you can say Robert Moses.
At some point, though, we need to spend time with how this nation imagined throwing us into ghettos on purpose and, driving out resources and creating this kind of economic disparity, because it seems as if the narrative is just because black people are horrible and we just deserve whatever's happening. Like, it's not like it wasn't a plan, like somebody did not go and then literally architect the whole thing.
That's right. Actually, I'm glad you raised that, Prof. Because that connection is very interesting. Here I am in Atlanta. That Pittsburgh neighborhood was considered, we need them here to service these trains, to do this work. And it was the soot and all this kind of thing, so bad they call it Pittsburgh. But in that neighborhood, they created remarkable things which endure. And just like you say, you cut through the neighborhoods, you cut through the Bronx, you cut through North Nashville, you cut through all these places. And in the wake, what do the people do? They thrive. I mean, and shout out to Lamont King, partner that you got us placed together in the mornings, on Friday mornings on Sirius, for helping me remember and understand and really get a better sense of how, even listening to Kendrick Lamar, he's representing a place that has been under perpetual assault. Because we remember Compton was created literally by black folk as an enclave where they could kind of show their unity, show their ability to create. And then, of course, You see the same kind of devastation here at Compton. And people repping Compton, they're not repping devastation, they're repping the ability to, in their governance formations to not only resist, but to thrive. Regardless of what we think about how they communicated in cultural meaning making, ultimately at the core of that is a way of knowing and say, you're not going to kill us. You're not going to kill us. Good kid, mad city. I mean, to put it together in that point. So I'm glad you made that connection. And so yeah, I mean, they end up out there. Mays goes. He ends up playing 21 seasons with the Giants between New York. He only spent 4 years in New York. But of course, he's immortalized in New York by, the catch, 1954 World Series, the catch, which is familiar. Willie Mays, almost like eyes in the back of his head, making this catch in center field and turn around, making a perfect throw. But he spent 4 years in New York. He would have spent maybe 6, but he spent 2 years in the Korean War. He lost 2 years of active playing to the Korean War and still hit 660 home runs, still had 3,200 some hits, still stole 300 some bases, still made more putouts from the outfield than any outfielder in the history of professional baseball. Still, all of these things, and missed 2 years. Now, he spent 2 years that Stolen and traded him back to the Mets after they had been created, and he was grateful to go. He didn't want to go at first, but then once he was back, he was like, I'm coming home. I'm in New York. So he spent 2 years with the Mets, retiring in 1973 at the World Series. He started his career in the World Series, ended his career at the World Series. And Willie Howard Mays Jr. spent a total of 23 years in the white major leagues. And then, of course, this year, a couple of months ago, last month, what we saw is that the Negro League statistics, some of them were added to the Major League Baseball statistics, white Major League Baseball statistics. And as a result, that gives Willie Mays, number 24, the center fielder for the San Francisco Giants, formerly the New York Giants, 24 years in professional baseball. The numbers are quite striking. So the game at Rickford Field was really something to watch. They had a celebrity game the night before. Our brother, Roy Wood Jr., who is, of course, from Birmingham, was having the time of his life. I heard some of the show on the way down while I was on it, and then I heard some. So I'm looking forward to hearing y'all have an extended conversation about that, because Roy was on fire, and he should have been. Because that was a special moment. Jabril Greer, who was the head groundskeeper for the field there in Rickford, Alabama, the field that was built, because remember, Fairfield, Alabama was a steel town. Birmingham's a steel town. And as a result, what you had there when Willie Mays was born, you had a situation where white workers, black workers, they in the coal mines, they're making the steel, very rugged work. And these little towns that cropped up like Fairfield were steel towns. Company towns is what they would call them. And so the companies try to create these communities where their workers would have everything they need. Sometimes they get paid in script, most of the time, script, SCRIP. Many people know, y'all know what script is. In other words, you can't spend that anywhere except in the company store. So everything's there. And so they even provided recreation. They had baseball teams. Baseball teams were huge. That's where Cat Mays, Willie Mays' father, Willie Mays Sr., played. Willie Mays Sr. and Willie Mays Jr. played baseball together. Willie Mays Sr. tells a story about how he had that bat and that ball in his son's hand. He was like 2 years old. By the time he could walk, he was hitting and all this kind of thing. But I mean, they played professionally together in the same outfield. So Bronny James, and his father won't be the first to play professionally. And that wouldn't be even Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. who played. Ken Griffey was there in Birmingham on Wednesday night and Thursday. Of course, Ken Griffey, Ricky Henderson, wore number 24 because of Willie Mays. Babe Ruth wore number 3 and Lou Gehrig. We know those numbers, Mickey Mantle, number 7. But the number 24 was the first number in professional sports that transcended generations because of the incandescence of the man who wore it and made it the number everybody wanted after that. So center fielders wanted number 24. Another African coming out of Puerto Rico who saw Mays play in the Caribbean and who eventually played on some of the teams that Willie Mays played against in the Caribbean when they would tour during the winter when he played for the Black Barons, Roberto Clemente, wore number 21. And that is why some of the Afro Latino players and some of the Latino players generally wear number 21. But the first number in professional sports wasn't Jim Brown, number 32, that other running backs wore. It wasn't Michael Jordan, number 23, but it was number 24. It was Willie Howard Mays Jr. And of course, on those San Francisco Giants, they're always looking for the next this. Who's the next LeBron? Who's the next Kareem? Well, the next Willie Mays was signed and played with the Giants. A brilliant 5'2" player in many ways, who couldn't stop getting injured, was injury prone, but still had a pretty remarkable career given his injuries. His name was Bobby Bonds. Bobby Bonds couldn't wear number 24 because his best friend on the team was wearing it. So he wore number 25. Well, there was a kid who followed around behind Willie Mays in the locker room because his father was Willie Mays' friend on the team and played in the outfield with him. And that young boy grew up to be Barry Bonds, who was there on Wednesday and Thursday. Barry Bonds wore number 25. He wanted number 24 because he wore 24 in Pittsburgh. All these synergies, very interesting. But when he signed with the Giants, because that's where his godfather was, Willie Mays became Barry Bonds' godfather. He took number 25, which was his father's number. And the only reason Bobby Bonds wore number 25, not number 24, because Willie Mays had 24. So again, in Willie's time, they're telling these stories about these connections. Of course, this was written long before Barry Bonds was even a thought. It's very interesting, though, because Roy kind of traced these connections and looking at the celebrity softball game. CC Sabathia, another great Black player in Major League Baseball, retired player. You had all these retired players, all these celebrities. But what was interesting to me was some of these people are people that this social structure has tried to kind of distance and kind of put a tag on. I mean, no Justin Timberlake's, but there was Dez Bryant. There was Terrell Owens. Oh, these are people. Here come Barry Bonds. Y'all, here come Alex Rodriguez, who's always on the Fox, obviously on the Fox broadcast squad. But this was not a week where you got to say who couldn't come. This was about the Negro Leagues. And then Willie Mays makes transition on Tuesday evening. And then it becomes about Willie Mays. And at this point, you can't stop nobody from coming. Remember, the two athletes who rewrote white Major League Baseball record books are both Alabamans. That's why I'm repping my Tuskegee shirt today. The great Alabaman from Mobile, the great Henry Aaron, no stranger here in the Atlanta area. He and his wife, Billy, now his widow, Billy, continued to do philanthropy, Billy Aaron. Just legends. The Hammer was from Mobile. And that's a beautiful thing. They actually brought a band from Mobile to perform. One of the brass bands, black brass bands that plays for Mardi Gras came up to perform. And of course, the great home run king. Now, the second person, of course, I'm thinking about is the one who made transition on Tuesday, Willie Howard Mays Jr., Willie Mays. These are the two that rewrote the record book. And very interesting, well, both of them came from the Negro Leagues. Of course, the Hammer played for the Indianapolis Clowns, which I talked about when I was out in Indianapolis for Marjorie Jones's funeral a few months ago. And of course, Willie Mays played for the Birmingham Black Barons. One other thing that's interesting about that is that they both played, in the Negro Leagues. They both rewrote the record books, and they are both from Alabama. And with Willie Mays making transition, it kind of seals off, in many ways, the indelible legacy of the Negro Leagues. Talked with Sean Gibson yesterday morning. And I talked with Sean Gibson, the good brother Sean Gibson, who is the executive director of his great-grandfather, Josh Gibson Foundation in Pittsburgh. That was founded by Sean's grandfather, who was Josh Gibson's son, Josh Gibson Jr. And one of the things Sean raised is that there's a campaign, and we should pay attention to this and support it, I think, to rename the most valuable player trophy in Major League Baseball for his great-grandfather, for Josh Gibson. It would be beautiful. Josh Gibson played at Rickwood. So many people played at Rickwood. As I said, Jabril Greer, who is the head groundskeeper at Rickwood Stadium now, brother, He said, I consider this place the holy grail of baseball because I think it's like maybe nearly half the players from that era who are in the Hall of Fame came through there. And some living players like Reginald Martinez Jackson, we'll talk about in a minute, who played for the Birmingham A's, the one of the farm teams of the Oakland days, where he broke in and became a superstar. But in thinking about how all these things converge on Rick Field, it's just very powerful, very powerful. There are a handful of Negro League players left. It's very interesting because Ryan Howard, the former first baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies, um, Major League Baseball had him back in February deliver 6 invitations to come to this game and this celebration. 6 invitations to 6 living Negro League players: Joseph Marbury, Clinton, Tiny Forge, Ernest Harris, Alphonse Hope, Al Hope, Ferdinand Rutledge, and Charles Willis. And then William Greason, Walter Kegman, and Andrew Bragg received their invitations later. In this film of Ryan Howard coming into that big left-handed first baseman brother for the Philadelphia Phillies, World Series champion with Jimmy Rollins, who was there, second baseman for the Phillies. All these cats were playing for the Phillies when I was living in Philadelphia, delivering these invitations by hand to these elders. 4 of those brothers were present this weekend in Birmingham, in nearby Birmingham, and one of them threw out the first pitch, and that would be William Henry Booster Greason. Bill Greason, Reverend William Greason, 99 years old. He'll be 99 in September. And he is actually not from Alabama. He's from Atlanta. He's from here. He went to Booker T. Washington High School. And I can't wait because, I didn't make that realization until this morning, looking at some things. I said, so I'm going to, ask Baba Marie, but we're going to ask him this afternoon at his little birthday celebration. Hey, man, did you know Bill Greason? Because he was a year ahead of him at Booker T. Washington High School. So it's crazy. Like, wait a minute, this guy, because of course Greason is a fascinating figure. He played not only for the Birmingham Black Barons. Greason, who was a pitcher, played with Mays. Willie Mays is a teenager. Willie Mays went to Fairfield High School. Fairfield Industrial High School is what they call it. Remember, it's an industry town, steel town, coal town. And Mays was a superstar there. In fact, Mays's parents, Cat Mays and his mother, met there. And his mother was a superstar. They never were married, but he was close to his father. His father's sisters raised him, and his mother lived within walking distance, riding his bike or walking. So he would spend a lot of time with his mother and his mother's family, but also his father's family were responsible for raising him. So you see in Willie Mays this convergence. And it's very interesting because Booster Greason played in the Negro Leagues. He played for the Nashville Black Vols. He played in Nashville. He played in my hometown. That's right. He played for the Nashville Black Vols. He played in Venezuela, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. Booster Greason threw out the first pitch the other night at the game. And he played in the Caribbean World Series in Caracas, Venezuela. See, this is the thing. I'm sick of hearing this, and I know people will continue to say it, and that's fine. That's up to you. I will never say it, okay, as any article of faith, because the same sick, divisive, we know we're all different. The Black community is not a monolith. The white community, human beings are not a monolith. You're not a monolith by yourself. So the idea that you want to cluster people as it accrues to the advantage of one group over another group, it's enough. Certainly when it comes to African people, I will never respect that or honor it. I understand it, but I will never center it. So when they say that only about 5.7% of Major League Baseball is Black players, and then they have to say Black American. Why? Because you're not talking about Afro-Latinos. Well, that trash was set aside this week in Birmingham. And you saw Reginald Martinez, through his father's side, Puerto Rico, Jackson, sitting with Alex Rodriguez, Dominican Republic, Big Papi David Ortiz, Dominican Republic, Derek Jeter, whose mother is white, father is Black, claims to Black, out of Michigan. They're all there as Reginald Martinez Jackson walked everyone through what happens when, as John Clark would say, oh, there he is, There he is. You want to play it right quick? I don't
Let's
know,
do
will
it.
they?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
How emotional is it for you to come back to a play that you played with one of the greatest teams around?
Alex, when people ask me a question like that, it's like coming back here is not easy. The racism that I played here, when I played here, the difficulty of going through different places where we traveled. Fortunately, I had a manager and I had players on the team that helped me get through it. But I wouldn't wish it on anybody. People said to me today, I spoke and they said, you think you're a better person. You think you won when you played here in Concord. I said, I would never want to do it again. I walked into restaurants and they would point at me and said, the nigger can't eat here. I would go to a hotel and they say, the nigger can't stay here. We went to Charlie Finley's country club for a welcome home dinner and they pointed me out with the N-word. He can't come in here. Finley marched the whole team out. Finally, they let me in there. He said, we're going to go to the diner and eat hamburgers. We'll go where we're wanted. Fortunately, I had a manager, Johnny McNamara, that if I couldn't eat in the place, nobody would eat. We'd get food to travel. If I couldn't stay in a hotel, they'd drive to the next hotel and find a place where I could stay. Had it not been for Raleigh Fingers, Johnny McNamara, Dave Duncan, Joe and Sharon Rudy, I slept on their couch 3-4 nights a week for about a month and a half. Finally, they were threatened that they would burn our apartment complex down unless I got out. I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Can you imagine that? And of course, he says at the end beautifully, he says, I want to thank those white folk who bumped for me. And I remember those guys. I mean, in 1973, which is the A's won the World Series. And I was rooting against them because I was rooting for the Cincinnati Reds. But, John McNamara ended up managing the Reds. But that's a story for another day because I like the Reds. The Reds always had a lot of black ball players. But then so did the A's. So, in fact, Ken Griffey's dad, Ken Griffey Sr., George Foster, Dan Dreesen, all those cats played for the Reds. And so anyway.
But had you known, because I remember Reggie Jackson being called surly and difficult by the media. The media had a severe problem with him because he was not accommodating. He had no joy for them. And so they painted him at that time. The media had a lot of power, painted him as this kind of like surly, bitter, nasty person, right? Did you know about Raleigh Fingers? Did you know did you know how magnanimous he was? And again, we put these people on, like John Brown pedestals, but this is the way people should be. This is a human act.
That's right.
It's not just that he's your teammate. It's wrong.
That's right.
It's wrong.
That's right.
You should step up because it's wrong.
Because it's wrong. That's exactly right. And it's interesting you say that, Karen, because you probably remember this. I mean, we were kids, but you probably remember the A's were always painted as the rebels, kind of like the Oakland Raiders. It's like, these are the incorrigibles. These are the kind of, I don't want to tell you, we can come forward and talk about the Portland Jail Blazers or even, but their response was to get closer together. Remember 1978, 1979, Willie Stargell and Dave Parker and Dave Cash and them in Pittsburgh, the family, we are family. Of course, the idea is because they had a lot of black players, including Afro-Latinos, Manny Sanguillen, for example. I mean, of course, Pittsburgh was where Roberto Clemente was. These players, they didn't see it the same way that this external racist structure saw it, and they often used it to get close together. The A's were very innocent. I remember Joe Rudy and Sal Bando and what's the second baseman's name? Anyway, Bert Campaneris, the shortstop. Remember those guys. And Jackson was, as he said, the straw that stirs the drink when he came to New York. And it's very innocent. You're absolutely right. We all remember, of course, how Reggie Jackson, who hit those 3 home runs in the 1977 World Series on 3 pitches in the game with a Jackie Robinson medallion around his neck, Jeff Chang opens his book "Can't Stop, Won't Stop" on hip hop with 1977, with what Moses had done to the Bronx, with Jackson being the World Series MVP, with the Bronx on fire, because in the middle of the World Series, these apartment buildings in the Bronx are blazing. Of course, looking now at these landlords getting the insurance money, and in the middle of the night in Yankee Stadium as the World Series being played, famously Harry Cosell comments, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Bronx is burning." All that converges together. You're assaulting these people, these Africans who speak Spanish and English, and yet they triumph and overcome it. And in those moments, Reggie Jackson was seen as you said, incorrigible, surly. But as he continues in that interview we saw there, as A-Rod asked him that question, he said, "I'd have been killed.
Because I would have whooped their ass.
I would have whipped somebody's ass, and I would have been in one of them oak trees." I mean, that was so powerful because that's who Jack Robinson was. Jackie Robinson's best sport was football. Willie Mays' best sports were football and basketball, not baseball. Jack Robinson, after that first year, would run your ass over on the football, on the baseball field. Willie Mays would run your ass over. In fact, there's a famous conversation Mays had a couple of years ago. Remember, they did a Willie Mays documentary. And of course, we talked about the Reggie Jackson documentary, where he deliberately went and got the hammer, Henry Aaron, where he deliberately interviewed these ball players. And Aaron spoke candidly. He did that a lot more toward the end of his life. And they asked Willie Mays, "Man, you broke so-and-so's leg. He was a catcher." He said, "Why you break his leg?" He said, "He got in the damn way." These cats could do that on the baseball. Reggie Jackson was not an outlier. Everybody wanted to whip somebody's ass. But let's be clear, Reggie Jackson, I'd have been dead. If they hadn't gotten me out of there, if they hadn't bumped for me, then I'd have been dead. So thank you. And you're right.
But think about, they were going to burn down the entire apartment complex because this man, good citizen, athlete, was just sleeping there, like burn down the whole complex.
That's right.
What for what?
But let's be clear. And I want to be very clear. Mike Harriet tweeted something out the other day, and I think it made a lot of sense. A lot of those people are still alive. And their children are still alive. So let's be very clear. You clapping, you paying $350 a pop to go see the Cardinals play the Giants in the Negro League Stadium, but ain't nothing changed. There are many things that have changed. In fact, this is the new edition of Atlanta Magazine, further along than we realized. They've got just picked this up last night, 60-year legacy of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Where'd you get that? I'm sorry.
Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
Yeah, because, in fact, it's very, I had to pick up all the magazines. I actually went in there looking for this one, which is the Mother Jones I told y'all about. It finally came out. It's called 40 Acres and a Lie, the story you didn't know about reparations. I've been waiting for this to come out in print. They didn't have it in the bus station and train station in D.C. when I left, but it was here, 40 Acres and a Lie. It's a very good report, a collaboration between Mother Jones and several other entities, including ProPublica, that talks about all the things we know. There's where Sherman had put aside that land for African people. They traced 125,000 Africans who were promised that land, who actually were able to get that land, and then the betrayal. Here's a short article called Paradise Stolen that talks about all of that work. Wes Lowry has a piece in here. Or actually, if you want to get more, you can get Mother Jones online, but also
I was going to ask you just quickly, why is it important for you to have the physical magazine versus because this is available on digitally?
That's right. I always want the physical, because when they turn all these electronic devices off, I can keep working. But anyway, Tim Wu, I did this before. When I read Tim Wu's book, The Master Switch, you always remember that you never want to be subject to the mercy of someone when it comes to information. The other thing is, and of course, I could have gotten this online, but knowing the places to go for the New York Times on Thursday here in Atlanta, I had to get this. Why? Because I'm going to save that. This is the cover of the New York Times on Thursday. Willie Mays. There he is right there. And of course, forceful, graceful, joyful Jim on the diamond, which means you don't know a goddamn thing about Willie Mays. But anyway, I mean, this is the social structure, even especially in death, they want to freeze you. But the whole point is that in the Atlanta Magazine, they're talking about the things that have advanced, the things that haven't, and much has advanced. We wouldn't be able to be doing many of the things we're doing now if not for the sacrifices of that generation. But as I say, even their ancestors had ancestors, which means we shouldn't start with the trauma, but we've made great progress since the heartbeat of the trauma and the sequel to slavery, Jim Crow and Jane Crow. That having been said, Major League Baseball is getting off cheap. They're getting off cheap. But let's integrate some Negro League record. Let's pay tribute to the Negro Leagues. But in that brief moment, in that little microcosm, what Reggie Jackson's comments exhibited for a moment is how governance works. Out of his identity, out of his being as a black man, he was able to speak human truths. This is what Aldous Wilson said. He said, are you writing for a black audience or a white audience? He says, no, I'm writing out of a black truth. And whoever's human can come get what you need to get out of it. So when Robinson, now what the white press would do is say, see, thank you. And then, you hear, and this is no critique of him, but you see the Kevin Burkhardt, who was the white anchor there. Oh, it's very powerful. Hey, bro, you should probably just not say nothing. Okay, just find yourself in it and thank you. And then you heard, we love you. Tell nobody give a damn about that. Look, Reggie Jackson looked like my Uncle Virgil. If Reggie Jackson came to my family reunion, he would fit right in with my uncles. So when you listen, you heard him choke a little bit, and I'm looking at Alex Rodriguez, Dominican Republic, David Ortiz, Dominican Republic, Derek Jeter sitting there. I'm looking at 4 black men. You understand? You talk to Derek Jeter's father, another black man, about that. You're looking at these, and so you can seeing Terrell Owens and seeing CeCe Sabathia and seeing Dez Bryant, seeing people who the sports writers savage. But guess what? Not these 2 days, and then Willie Mays passed, which means y'all can't say shit. Seeing Barry Bonds, y'all can't say shit to me today. You know why? Because Willie Mays my godfather. Let's be clear. And he's sitting there, and they ask him and number 24 for the Seattle Mariners, the great Ken Griffey Jr. If y'all had played against Satchel Paige in his time, what would y'all have done? Barry Bonds, of course, says, "Oh, I'd have hit a home run on it. It'd be gone." And you see Ken Griffey looking at him like, bruh, really? But that's Barry Bonds. What people don't know is that was also Willie Mays. Willie Mays, I'm the best. I'm the best that ever was. And everybody says now he was the best. It's a consensus. It's the best baseball player that ever put on a glove and spikes. And so in that moment, the idea of our common humanity is filtered through the blackness. Because when you see Willie Mays, you're not just seeing Willie Mays, you're seeing his father, Cat Mays, Willie Mays Sr. You're seeing his mother, Annie Satterwhite, a star athlete. You're seeing all the things from that region. The jukebox brass band that came up from Mobile, all these black folks. You're seeing the Birmingham Black Barons, but you're seeing the biggest business in the country founded by black people. Those white boys, Branch Rickey and them, Horace Stone, they weren't going to integrate white Major League Baseball. What they wanted was to use the Negro Leagues as a farm team and get some of these black players in so they could use them to win.
Oh, wait, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. The year I came here, Bull Connor was the sheriff the year before.
Yes.
Flex down unless I got out.
Then let that play here. Because he's talking about, he's going to tell us now about he was there in Birmingham when something happened that we all know about.
Okay, hold on. Let me put it back.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't wish it on anyone. The year I came here, Bull Connor was the sheriff the year before. And they took minor league baseball out of here because in 1963, the Klan murdered 4 black girls, children, in 11, 12, 14 years old at a church here and never got indicted. They were from the Klan. Life magazine did a story on them like they were being honored. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. At the same time, had it not been for my white friends, had it not been for a white manager and Rudy, Fingers, and Duncan, and Lee Myers, I would have never made it. I was too physically violent. I was ready to physically fight I'd have got killed here because I'd have beat someone's ass, and you'd have saw me in an oak tree somewhere.
Reggie, I can't even.
You can stop.
Yeah, I was gonna say because that's where you just be quiet.
Just be quiet, man. It's not
don't
about
have to say
you.
anything, white man. This ain't.
Just be quiet.
What does that need to have to? Say something? Like shut the F up. Like why do you have to feel like you have to say something? Because you sit there with these people, you don't have a clue about this experience.
Nope. But guess what? It's his world. We just living in it. Because I watched on Juneteenth. I didn't watch it on Juneteenth. I watched it after Lamont and Carr. I watched this. I watched Kendrick Lamar play They Not Like Us 5 times in a row. The 6th being instrumental. And the N-word flowed so freely on Juneteenth evening, and all I saw was white hands repeating every word. No, they not like us, young brother. But as Kenyatta Anyenya, who's here in Atlanta, said last week when we were talking about that, we not like us. Who in the hell gets on a stage and invites all these white people on Juneteenth or any other day to use the N-word so freely? I understand. It's complicated. I understand.
Well,
But
hold on. Church finger. I didn't see any
yes.
white people on the stage, Dr. Carr.
No, I'm not talking about on the stage. I'm talking about watching the same way they were watching Jay-Z. No white people on stage.
They weren't invited up, though. They weren't participating. And if they were imagining themselves, they are not included in this experience. It felt different.
But they are included, aren't they? Kevin was included there. That's why he said he can't imagine. He got the chance to say. I mean, in other words, who gonna check them, boo? The only time you get to the only time we check white people is between the lines. In other words, between the painted lines on a field. We don't check them once that's over. That's why Sean said, I want my great-grandfather's name on the MVP trophy. Because if you know Major League Baseball, the most valuable player trophy today is named for Kennesaw Mountain Landis, a purebred racist. Now, he did suspend Shoeless Joe Jackson for gambling, but he's also the one that said black people will never play in Major League Baseball. The MVP trophy is still got his name on it, just like Lester Maddox, one of the articles in the Atlanta magazine talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964. One of the brothers is like, y'all talking about how much progress we made. You still got Lester Maddox's name on streets in Atlanta. Just 2x4 wheeling races. And the MVP in Major League Baseball still gets the Kennesaw Mountain Landis Award. And Sean is like, my great-grandfather's name should be on that award. But I'm bringing all that up to say this. Outside the lines, they do what they want. Willie Mays was suspended from baseball because he took a job in Atlantic City at a casino as a greeter. By law, they couldn't mingle in the casinos. He wasn't talking about gambling. He played golf with the high rollers. That's in the third of the books that I packed as I was riding. I reread this, James Hirsch's big book, Willie Mays, The Life, the Legend by James Hirsch. This was authorized by Willie Mays. Mays would not talk to biographers. This brother waited 7 years to finally get Willie Mays to talk to him. And when you read it, you see all these things. Willie Mays was hurt by that. If you don't want to read just the interview, you can read his own words. He said he went to Bowie Kuhn, another racist, punk-ass racist, now dead, who was the commissioner of baseball when Mays was playing, who said, you took that job, so you can't be in nothing involved with Major League Baseball. And Kuhn, hard ass, suspended Mickey Mantle for the same reason. Then, after Kuhn was gone, they brought them back because they weren't doing anything wrong. But I'm saying that's outside the lines. Inside the lines, you can beat an ass with your bat, which is what Jackson did. And it's very important to understand that. That genealogy matters. This week, I don't have no smoke for Kendrick Lamar. I don't. I've listened to all his music. Don't think I haven't. I've tried to puzzle why. I listen to young people talk about him. I ain't no problem with Kendrick Lamar. I'm saying that yes, no white people on stage. And by the way, if you think that this is the first time that all the gangs came together, you probably want to go back and listen to Dr. Dre, The Chronic, the day the N-words took over, and you hear them talking about Crips and Bloods, or go talk to Jim Brown in the ancestral realm about. And before that, go back to Jackie Robinson, go back to Willie Mays, go back to athletes who used their cachet during the period of the 60s, even. Certainly Jackie Robinson. Can
we just though acknowledge that we, as you mentioned on Urban View Mornings, we have no memory.
We have no memory.
We have no memory. So at least these moments for this generation that has no memory, they probably don't even know Teddy Pendergrass with the opening of, the Euphoria. They probably don't even know any of the references, but it gives people like you an opportunity to remind people like we do every Saturday. So to me, I'm always excited because if not for this,
me too.
If not for this, when will we tie it all together? When would we bring? I got to recommend the Reggie Jackson documentary that very few people watched a couple of years ago when it came out. Now go watch that because it's relevant. It's so relevant. Right. You get to see more, but people need an entry point. Unfortunately, they're not just going to go down a rabbit hole.
No, I agree. No, I don't have any disagreement with that. I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, that's why we talk about using Haile Garima's phrase, points of entry. These are all points of entry. They're not. They cease being points of entry when everything is shut down. In other words, when you raise, okay, And this is why in the African States framework, as we've talked about many times, there's a difference between cultural meaning making. That's what's happening in your generation, in your moment, and movement and memory. We're trying to get to movement and memory, not to discredit cultural meaning making. Everybody does what they can in their time. That's Frantz Fanon. Every generation out of relative obscurity must identify their mission, fulfill it, or betray it. That's why I say I ain't got no smoke for Kendrick Lamar. The problem comes in when we start talking about who's the greatest of all time. Look, just leave that. Appreciate what's happening here. And then if we want to stitch things together, let's do it, but let's not do it from a position of ignorance. It's the embrace of ignorance that is the death of our people. Because it seems to me that, and I think you made this point, actually I was listening to you saying the other day, we were talking about Kendrick Lamar and that generation. In a different context, their talent, their undeniable talent, their to be celebrated talent would be able to stretch and expand even differently. And I have no doubt artists do that all the time. Now, I mean, you know, it's hard to displace a social structure when you put so much value in what your master does. I mean, so people saying a Pulitzer is evidence of genius. No, they gave Bob Dylan a Pulitzer, and I'm still trying to understand why people think he's a genius. But anyway, the point is that this licensure, Duke Ellington never got one. They gave the cover of Time magazine to Dave Brubeck before they gave it to Duke Ellington, and Brubeck told the story. He said, you know, man, I was on the cover and I was embarrassed. We were staying in the same hotel, and I was like, I don't even want to see Duke. And then I saw Duke. Duke was like, congratulations. I was embarrassed. Man, I should never be on the cover. Yes, you should. Why? Because you're a white man and this is a white society. Hell, y'all elected a full clown. You know, the new book out that is fascinating on called Apprentice in Wonderland about Donald Trump. The reason Donald Trump got elected president of the United States because he's a reality star. Exposing his lies ain't gonna help. Why? Because ignorance is the coin of the realm. That's what they do here. You see what I'm saying? Jamal Bowman, for wherever his flaws are or foibles, Jamal Bowman is running up against somebody who got $14.5 million being pumped in by organizations that have a single issue. Israel. They don't give a damn about the people of his district. They don't give a damn about the millions he's brought in. No, this is about, we're going to lynch this Negro and make an example out of him. Because like Reggie Jackson, who would beat somebody's ass, Jamal Bowman always gives the impression, I will beat your ass. No, you Negroes don't get to talk like that. You don't get to be up swole, husky. I don't care if you were a high school principal. You, sir, are an N-word. And we're going to humble your black ass. We're going to pour more money than God, the most expensive race in the history of the United States Congress, to break your ass in front of everybody in case any of y'all get any ideas. We couldn't take out Summer Lee. We went against Rashida Tlaib. It's too black. But your ass, we're going to break your black ass. And so my point is this. Cultural meaning making in a moment allows us to exhibit our genius, to exhibit our talents. What you're saying is exactly right, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Movement and memory allows us to stitch these things together so we can see things for what they are, and then every generation, as Fanon says, has to make a choice. So it's very interesting because in that clip, again, right there pregame, then they play the game, and you see Bill Greason, William Greason, 99 years old, Reverend Greason, throw that first pitch out. And the thing that's striking is we don't get the backstory, all of the stuff being down there. Roy did the best. Roy did a lot. You know, he took Harold Reynolds over to his old high school. Reggie Jackson stayed with the mayor of Atlanta because he went to Morehouse. The mayor of Birmingham, Randall Wolfen, he went and spoke to those young people. He's hanging out with them. Reverend Greason, they say he's 99 years old, one of the last living major league Negro League players. He's fun. Yeah, but he's a minister. Yeah, but you got to talk a little bit more about what that story is about. He was the minister of Bethel Baptist Church in Birmingham, Bethel Baptist Church. And it's very interesting because not only was he a player, he was a Marine. He was one of the Marines of Montford Point. There's a good book called The Marines of Montford Point. These are the Black Marines who were stationed in North Carolina. And you see, not only that, he goes to Korea after the Caribbean World Series. And then he comes back, and he and his wife, Willie, his wife's name was Willie. This man who played Willie Mays on Birmingham Black Parents, who was a Korean vet, Marines, he comes back to I'm thinking about Korea because of North Korea. Vladimir Putin was in North Korea and Vietnam. Pay attention because the world is changing. He was there this week while we were talking about baseball. But anyway, he and his wife, Willie, the Greasons, were members of 16th Street Baptist Church. Willie Greason, Reverend Willie Greason, was traveling with a semi-pro team that September morning that those 4 children lost their lives in 16th Street Baptist Church with Reggie Jackson. So Reggie Jackson playing minor league baseball with the Oakland A's. The 4 girls are killed. Mind you, Birmingham integrated attendance at Rickford Stadium so blacks and whites could come. And then after the Civil Rights Act after Brown versus Board of Education was decided, they resegregated the stadium. See, these white people that are racist like that, the white nationalists, the Project 2025 people, the Stephen Millers, the Christian soldier, Sam Alito, all those people, they are very clear about who they are. We're the ones who are confused. And I'm not mad at the young boy for, putting littering the N-word in his music. It happens all the time. Everybody's used the N-word. I'm not even mad of him from putting on display on Juneteenth, which is black as hell and coming from the governance formation. And all these white people out there with their cell phones. I'm not mad at that either. Why? Because I understand it. It is, as you say, a point of entry to continue to deepen. And that's what we're doing week after week. So I'll continue and wrap this up. After that bombing, that's when William Greason, Reverend Bill Greason decides, I'm going to devote the rest of my life towards smashing this type of inhumanity, this type of racism, and I'm going to do it from the pulpit. He preached at 16th Street, and then he got the pastorate at Bethel in 1971, and he was there for almost 50 years, he and his wife. So, I mean, the social structure likes to see us throwing balls. But outside the lines is where we live. We bring the outside lines on the field, which is why Willie Howard Mays is so potent and powerful, because he spoke with his bat, he spoke with his glove, he spoke with his genius on the field. And he represented the blackness. And that blackness does not discriminate based on where you got dropped off by the enslavers. So if you got dropped off in the Caribbean and speak Spanish, they did not discriminate. Willie Mays played in the Negro Leagues, and he played in places like New York. He played in places like DC. This guy's a teenager coming out of Fairfield Industrial High School, but he was the best player. He played in the Caribbean. That's where Roberto Clemente saw him. When Roberto Clemente's father, who was a player, came in. He played there. Louis Tiant, the great pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, as we talked about. Louis Tiant's father was a Negro leaguer, because Cuba brought whole teams into the Negro Leagues. And Rube Foster's dream was integration, but not individual players. Not Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson, and not Jack Roosevelt. No, we're going to integrate, meaning I'm bringing the Homestead Grays into white meat. Can you imagine what them World Series would have looked like if the Grays had their intact team playing against the Yankees? We would be talking about no damn New York Yankees. Because understand that even though football and basketball may have been made as best sports, baseball is the one where you get paid. And somebody made this point the other night, if LeBron James had been born when Willie Mays was born, he'd been playing for the Negro Leagues and in Major League Baseball. There was no big money basketball. Wasn't no big money nothing, but wasn't no big money basketball, and it wasn't integrated, and it wasn't no big money football. It was baseball. People say, well, how you get more black players in the league? Well, you've convinced several generations of black athletes that the money and the glam is in basketball and football. Terrell Owens would have been playing center field for somebody. Can you imagine if the Homestead Grays, the Birmingham Black Barons, the Indianapolis Clowns, the Atlanta Black Crackers, if, we drove past the Atlanta Braves Stadium now safely away from the blacks in downtown Atlanta. And I said, they should go back to their roots. Because the Negro Leagues had the Atlanta Black Crackers, and aren't they in Cobb County? Maybe you can call them the Cobb County Crackers. Anyway, the point is this. Can you imagine those Negro League teams being integrated into white Major League Baseball? You talk about a record book. We're not talking about individuals. See, this is the problem. I'm going to come to a close now. Individuals can be celebrated. Ty Cobb said, Willie Mays is incredible. He plays the game like I played the game. I see. But individuals can be celebrated. What can't be celebrated is black institutions. You can't celebrate the Negro Leagues. You celebrate individual Negro League players and call it the Negro Leagues. You can't celebrate black businesses. You talk about the tragedy in Black Wall Street. You can't celebrate. You can celebrate heroic black individuals who suffered. But imagine if those people had it. Okay, I did suffer, but now I got an entity, and you're going to take us together. So Rube Foster dies penniless in the insane asylum. Josh Gibson has a stroke at 35 years old, brain aneurysm, stroke, dead. And now you valorize them. Sean is like, put my great grandfather's name on the trophy at least, because Kennesaw Lance was a racist, Bowie Coon was a racist, all y'all racist, and now you want to congratulate yourselves? I'm not gonna get too fired up about this. I think though, finally, that as we turn toward a week where there's going to be a debate, not a debate, Joe Biden is going to try to state facts, and Donald Trump going to get up there and say what the hell he want to say, and everybody going to say that it was a draw. I mean, let's just get to the point. We have to have the momentum of memory. This week, Wilson Jeremiah Moses made transition. Wilson Moses was a great historian. I got a chance to sit with him one time. John Clark told me before he made transition, you got to go sit with Wilson Moses. He was a historian of Black nationalism. His book, The Golden Age of Black Nationalism, very important. Black Messiahs and Uncle Toms, the book that he wrote, a collection of essays. He wrote about Alexander Crummell, the great biography, Alexander Crummell, A Life in Civilization and Discontent, and a collection of Crummell's writings. But when I read his work, I asked Dr. Clark, what do you think? Because Wilson Moses did not buy the idea of that unbroken genealogy that Clark and them talked about. But Clark respected Wilson Moses as a scholar and as a decent human being, good brother. I think he's from Detroit. So I went to Penn State one time when I was working for the school district. My boss, Cassandra Jones, Dr. Jones, was like, okay, Dr. Carr, you can, I had to come to this meeting. You want to ride with me? I said, sure. Why do I want to ride? Because that's where Wilson Moses is. John Clark had passed by that time. I found Wilson Moses and we sat for hours. I brought a physical copy of my dissertation, my 500-some page dissertation. He sat there. He started reading it. He went through lines. He was talking about it. My dissertation is clearly African-centered. It's called The African-Centered Philosophy of History. I'm tracing the same genealogy that he was working on a book called Afrotopia on at the same time. We had different opinions on how to interpret this evidence. But when I told him John Clark told me come see him, this is what he said. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Clark. He's a fine scholar. And he and I sat and talked. So all you ideologues out here who want to discredit Afrocentricity, African-centered, your mouths, stitch them shut because you don't know what you're talking about. There is a camaraderie, whether it be Black ball players, Black scholars, and if you embrace that camaraderie in our governance formations, the differences we have of opinion will not distract us from our common objective, which is to live in our full humanity. So I just want to cover a few things, and we'll stop now. It's been an hour, 47 seconds, and
that was it. You're gonna cover a few things. That was it.
yeah.
Okay.
Was it a few things?
That was a few things. Okay.
Yeah, it was a few. It was a few.
It was good. No, that was good.
We'll keep it. We'll keep it convenient. Hold on a second. Let me see here. Yeah. Oh no. We can pause because I don't know. Normally we don't get a chance to be in more dialogue. I kind of go through some things. We start talking at the beginning, we go forward, and I'm not set up. Let me see if I can pull up the app here because I'm not set up to see what people are talking about in Nubia and there and Nubia, or the iPad is always tripping. I might be able to pull up the YouTube, but I can't pull up Nubia here because I'm on the phone. I'm using the phone to do because it's got a clearer it's got a clearer shot.
This is good. Let me just also publicly thank you for showing up on Urban View on the mornings with Lamont. It is the best. I was telling Lamont this. It is. I was driving around yesterday as a listener, and I was so enthralled with the commentary, the back and forth. There's a natural. I can't even describe it. It's like y'all have just the warmth that like people, everybody wants to call in. You have so many people who, the guy from Canada, the woman that was regaling you, the Nubian that called it, it's just there's like, and then Lamont's way is also it's just brilliant. I can't explain it. In my head I saw it. And then it is the best show that I best 3 hours, even like I enjoyed listening to it more than mine. I just will say that.
Well, you're sitting at the center of that, and all I can think of. Let me first of all, thank you, Karen. Thank you for putting us together. Thank you for allowing us to be in the space and have that conversation and be there. And I want to say that having been said, and I was talking about this the other day, listening to you, listening to the masters, it has. See, I'm gonna tell y'all about Karen Hunter. She sees these things, and then she pull you into a thing, and before you know it, you can see it too, and then you realize, oh, that's it. So, and I told this to I ain't gonna tell y'all what I said to him because Reggie Jackson said you'd beat somebody's ass, and I don't want to. But let's just say a previous formation at the job that I've worked at now for about almost 25 years. There was a senior executive, let's say a president, college president, and we were had a conversation. And at one point, I said, "Hey man, I'm an academic. I'm not going to do that." And there was a kind of response that could help you understand why. Well, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Point is this: I'm an academic, but I'm not an academic. I have all the licensure because that gives me access. But my standards are like Willie Mae's standards. My standards are you've got to be the best at your craft that you can be, and use that as a space where you can help other people do that. That's why I'm a teacher. We're teachers. The radio, as you've always said, is a classroom, is a space where people can learn and exchange ideas. So to be invited into that space has made me now more and more want to be, intend to be, committed to be a student of how that works. And so to listen to how you move, you talk about topics, to move from topic to topic to topic with humor, with rapid fire insight, and then invite all these other people into it, regardless of what their opinions are. There is a genius at work there, and a technique that I intend to be a student of, because now you'd have thrown us in the fire. So I got no choice.
The other thing is, we academics, as a person that's taught for 24, 25 years, you get in, there's a rut because it's year after year, these kids in the curriculum, the syllabus, the syllabi, it's the same conversations over and over again. And what radio does for me, it makes me a student because it exposes me to people and thoughts and ideas that I wouldn't normally like the Indian, the Sikh that I had on yesterday. That's a numerologist. Yes. When would I ever meet a Sikh that's a numerologist from India who's now in America doing numbers really for real estate? I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's legit or not, but I said, this is an interesting fella, and we get to talk with him, and the callers that call in that are from all over the world who get to call in and challenge you. And it forces me to think about the world in a different way, because we tend to go into our little corners and our tribes, and we know what we know. But to every day be challenged about what you know. I say this often about religion. If your God can't be challenged, then how powerful is your God? If your God cannot accept scrutiny, how powerful? And if your God needs you to fight,
yes,
you got a really tiny God. So let God be God, in that way, and let your knowledge of everything be challenged, because that's the only way you'll really know whether you know stuff.
Right.
So I loved hearing you and Lamont go back and forth over Kendrick, because I lean towards what Lamont was saying, right? I don't necessarily agree with you, but this is important, right? And I know I know where you're coming from, and you're right in that, but there's something else going on here. And we need to be able to, toggle and see and or not, but even having that back and forth, I think, for the listener as well. Because I was sitting in my car arguing with you. I was like, come on, come on now, give it a break, man, because this is something's happening here. And you were doubling down. I was like, I know what you're saying. You're right until you're not, right? Because you're absolutely right. But the moment, what's happening right now, we can't. I don't know where this is going.
Well, here's the question.
A year from now, will we be singing this?
Well,
I don't know. But
Drake,
we will be.
We might. I mean, maybe it may raise the level of Hit 'Em Up like Tupac. It may raise the level of No Vaseline like Ice Cube. But
before I let go.
No, because Frankie Beverly is not in a beef with anybody.
Yeah, but this is not a beef anymore. This
don't
really even have nothing to do with Drake at this point.
Okay, that's good. What do you think it has something to do with?
I think it has something to do with the standard of what it means to be in community with us around our art. And either you're an interloper coming in with the profit in mind to extract, or you're part of the culture expressing whatever the culture is expressing, which is why the N-word flying around is different. And I can't explain it because I'm resistant, zero tolerant. I don't even let people say that on my radio show. But in that space with the fellas on the stage holding hands and LeBron's Savannah saying, "You're not going up there, not today, sir, but we're going to be in this audience." There's a something, because, Drake and LeBron were cool, but this ain't about Drake. This is about us. And when he says us, I feel the us, and this is not my generation. Kendrick's not my person. I didn't grow up listening to him. But I see what is happening, and it's changing the way even young people, even if it sends them to the thesaurus to figure out how to talk and rhyme and say
they're not going to do that. They're just going to say, "Nigga, that's this nigga."
No, they might. No, they might.
Some of them might.
They might. You don't know what is going to give birth to a new generation of people who might be committed to wordplay and not mumbling. Maybe. We don't know. We don't know.
But that's why they have to we have to be there. You're right. We have to be there. I agree with that. What it made me think of, ironically, is, and it's funny as I sit here in Atlanta, because this is where I bought Percival Everett's book when it first came out, Erasure. It reminds me of the protagonist, which we of course saw in the film American Fiction. Percival Everett's author being so frustrated with this trash that he writes My Pathology by Stagg R. Lee, and clearly a satire, and then it becomes the biggest thing in the world. You know what I'm saying? And so I agree with you. There's a sentiment. I think in terms of ways of knowing, yes, they're not like us. That's why Dan Black could use it.
Right. And because we are so mediocre and so backwards and so bereft of deep knowledge and thought, and because of where we are right now, Dr. Carr. This is why I'm leaning in, because where you are, to get to where you are, the chasm is so great with the training. Like people don't even have the muscle,
right? So how do they build the muscle?
This is what I'm saying. If this could be a bridge, look, I'm looking for bridges any place I can find them. If we can find some planks to let's go, because we can't be this dumb and survive this long.
Well, there we go.
So this thing is either going somebody gonna be like, "Oops, is that the button?" Because they still, like I feel like this is where we are right now. We put a psycho in the damn White House with the nuclear code, and it's gonna happen again.
It's gonna happen again. Oh, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen again. And so then when the consequences come, I was like, "Oh, well, I just thought, because he gave me the stimulus check, and they both the same, and but then, you can't shame me in the voting, and also we got all this going on, Dr. Carr. So if there's somebody that can say, hey, read a book, learn some words, put your brain cells together, let's do something, I'm hopeful."
But they're not going to, well, let me not say, we don't know. You're right. That's the best thing. In fact, I spent $30 on this magazine. This is the 10th anniversary issue of Viper. Some of y'all know what Viper is. I did not. This is hip hop. This is all these hip hop over the last 10 years.
On the back, is that Chris on the back? Who is that?
No, that's not Carr. He wouldn't be caught. That's this.
You said he wouldn't be caught dead on that.
No. I'm just saying.
Okay, I see why.
Sexy red. I mean,
because all right, say less.
But the point is that many of them buying this stuff at the jewelry store in Buckhead that's run by the Indian Americans who shower them with all these diamonds they spend money on. There's a long article in the New York Times last year about it. It just makes you cringe when you think about it. But I'm saying all that to say, I'm not throwing these young people away. I had to teach a hip hop course. I'm not going to. Somebody got to stay with the standard.
Yes, and it's you. It's you. You're the standard. You're the standard. So
but it does no good to be. It does. And see this. I think this is excellent, really, because I have a lot of friends. We both do, colleagues, comrades who are. In fact, I was listening to the conversation that Ree was having yesterday. I said, "Can we go to see the Brave Stadium? I want to see where they've built this little enclave out here." And so the Ree was doing the replay, and I was listening to them talk about the guest she had on was talking about using hip hop text as sacred text, and she mentioned Lil Wayne, she mentioned Kendrick, and I'm sitting there myself. The first impulse, of course, is to tear what's remaining of my hair out, but I stopped. And I said, I have to sit with this because, we have a Tupac Shakur who, like Jimi Hendrix, like James Dean, like, Robert Johnson, had a very limited moment of work, who is valorized for his gifts and for things like Brenda Has a Baby. And then we kind of let I Get Around kind of go past our ears, and but you've elevated Wheezy to sacred text. At that point, at that point, nothing is sacred, and that's fine because I can use it as a point of entry on the wordplay, on the attempt. I'm not even talking about intergenerationally because a fan of Kendrick, like Tariq Trotter, Black Thought. I say, I'm a fan. We want to do something together. He says, hey, he has never reached out to us. We've never reached out to him, but I would like to work with him during the future. It's very telling to me when I hear someone like Tariq Trotter walk through Cool G Rap's Road to the Riches, which is close to our generation. You know, the road ain't yellow and it ain't no witches. My name is Cool G Rap. I'm on the road to the riches. And he goes through the hard striving of come. I know it's East Coast, I know it's New York, but this guy from Philadelphia is saying that was the blueprint for me. I'm listening to Kendrick and I'm saying the wordplay is there, the couplets are there, the metaphors are there. Also, there is the deep pathology. And it is, you can explain it because this is the context out of which it emerges. Now, at the same time, thinking again about Percival Everett, who is an unknown figure to many of these folk. You know, when I hear Tariq Trotter give a couplet and he says, you know, dignity and sanity is what the game cost you. You know, wake up to them panel, wake up to the pads because we thought we had lost you. I'm just painting a picture like Kerry James Marshall. I'm just taking a picture like Carrie Mae Weems. So smile and say cheese. It's 2018, you know, in a pyramid scheme. I'm trying to be a modern day king. You know, he's giving a critique that leads somewhere, and he's pointing people to say, "Who is Kerry James Marshall?" When I hear Kendrick, "Be Humble," when I, you know, hear Kendrick on "To Pimp a Butterfly," I hear the metaphors, I hear some of the connections, but then I also hear a retreat to who I am as I am is good and enough. And my thing is, it is, brother, but you are working against people who are organized, as Hakeem Abudi said. They're in a conspiracy, and the conspiracy isn't because they all sat in the same room. They have the same basic grounding. John Roberts ain't never been in a room with, well, I don't know. He may or may not have been in the room with AIPAC. But when they write Citizens United in 2010, that allows you to spend $14.5 million to stop somebody who's helping his community in the way that he knows, because you got one issue. And what do we have against it? We got rappers.
Right.
We're going to lose, y'all.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Unless.
Yes. And the people who aren't going to dissect and listen to a Black Thought will listen to a Kendrick. And if there's a thread that we can pull that can drag them into a Black Thought and then into Real Thought and then into, like, I'm not willing to give up. I'm not.
No, we can't. We can't give up.
So what I'm saying is, you're the standard, and let's figure out how whether you like it or not. Is it?
I aspire. I said we should aspire to.
We should all aspire to be okay, but you're closest to the standard that I've known in my personal life, and so let's figure out how to get from the crazy place that we are over to here. And maybe it's baby steps, maybe it's a little bit. I mean, the Coldest Winter Ever got a lot of people reading. So did Pimp.
Oh yeah.
So did Donald Goines. So did the comic books, right? So whatever the entry point for me to help people get from point A, maybe it's comedy, you know, maybe it's Pryor, maybe it's, you know, George Carlin, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's Charleston White. I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm saying if there's a thread that we can pull, let's pull it. I don't want to give up on anybody. We got to get there. We need more people to get there. So
we should talk more about this. We should talk more about it, even in office hours, and even now. We should, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about that metaphor, the thread. Let's say that it's regional. Let's say that, you know, the roots are East Coast and Kendrick West Coast, whatever. I'm saying, go to Ice Cube, go to O'Shea Jackson, and think about. I mean, there's a moment NWA is doing that. You know, it was once said by a man who couldn't quit, "Dope man, please, may I have another hit?" Ice Cube's writing that, and then when they break, with No Vaseline being a diss song, they'll probably be like, "They not like us," and hit them up and all that. But then he gets close to the books, to Farrakhan. He's talking with Khalid Muhammad, and when he does Death Certificate, you hear a different thing. That, to me, one of the great hip hop standards is A Bird in the Hand. You know, where he's going through that whole critique and turning an internal critique. when he's critiquing Jesse Jackson. You know, should I just wait for help from Bush or Jesse Jackson and Operation Push? If you ask me, the whole thing needs a douche. Massengale, what the hell? Crackle Cell in the neighborhood, to the corner house B words. Miss Parker, Little Cho, and Todd Bridges, and everybody that he know. So I caught me a bird, better known as a kilo. But he puts it in the context of just, and I'm saying that's West Coast. That's South California. That's close to Compton. He's repping Compton. And so if you look at it over the arc of generations, given the context of what these companies, what this social structure will promote and what it won't promote, Ice Cube from there to now becomes the toothless, are we there yet, Dad? Several Fridays. He's got a big 3 ball player, and Kendrick is starting from scratch. I'm saying there's no genealogy.
Right.
This is the
Because
challenge.
everybody got theirs and then they leave, right? There's nobody.
Yes.
So that's part of the pathology. So we have to then decide, because as I listen to all of this, even your buddy has a what's the guy that just had all of these babies?
Nick from the same.
Cannon. Okay, Nick Cannon. Yeah, Nick Cannon. All right. So Nick Cannon has this whole thing where he's doing this, he's got a TV show where he's talking to men about things.
I saw Umar on there.
And then Umar was brilliant on there, actually.
But this is the point. He's bringing in context. My heart was breaking. I'm like, oh.
So but he has the platform because he has been gifted this gift of gab and all of this to be able to get. So he's inside the house, right?
He's inside the house.
Inside the house. And if he sat with you long enough, because that's the thing, I'm gonna pull a little bit. Oh, I got this little thing, and I'm gonna run with it because now I know everything. And then you run into a brick wall. We don't sit long enough in the soil to actually get the depth that we need. But there are folk out there that just need a tap on the shoulder, and if they just know what you're doing is wrong. Even having a conversation with Ibram Kendi last week, I don't know if it's nefarious on his part to go do these things when you're getting the awards, the money, the accolades. You're not thinking I'm doing something bad for the culture.
It's not nefarious
until somebody pulls you and says this is bad for the culture, but then you are invested, right? So how do you turn away from the thing that made you?
Professor,
I mean, it's so much. So I'm sitting here, I'm gonna always ask the question. I'm gonna always poke a finger in people's eyes and tap them on the shoulder because I don't have anything to lose, and I also have nothing to gain. This is not my ministry.
No, you have something to gain. You have us to gain. That's why you're a moral anchor. And people make the distinction between moral and ethics, but I would just say ways of knowing. You're for us. You're for us. You're for us as African people. You're for us as a species, as humanity. You're for us in terms of life. You are that is straight down the line. And I'll tell you, it's interesting you raised the coldest winter ever. And I think it's a great example of what we're trying to do. I remember when we first started Philadelphia Freedom Schools, this was 1999, and had an auditorium full of these high school students. We're still trying to figure out how to build this thing around intellectual work. In my mind, I'm like, whatever y'all are talking about in terms of things that are being done, is this it? Everybody done? Okay, here, give me that trash bag. Put that in the trash. Because I worked for a school district. I was in senior administration at a school district. I see the expectations you have of our children, and they have nothing to do with intellectual work that grounds itself in our standards. And I'm saying that now, and I'll keep this very, very quick. We had just come out of these curriculum fights. Kay Lovelace at the time was director of curriculum from school district. She had done the same thing in Detroit where the African-centered folk were in charge. And she was trying to revise curriculum. Every time they wanted to talk about what Black books do you want to put in the curriculum? Here come Invisible Man. Here come Toni Morrison. Oh, that's great. Here come Richard Wright. And I'm saying, no, let's start with our earliest work. You still got them reading Beowulf. You still got them reading the Greeks, Sophocles. You still got them writing, still got to read them Shakespeare. We were writing before that. And we got the Egyptians, we got West Africa, and bringing the indigenous people. Let's do it. And the looks on their faces, why? Because you can't imagine Black people before the trauma. So even when you think you're doing well, it's better than nothing. But anyway, so Freedom School said, this is our chance to do it without compromise. So the first year the Children's Defense Fund they were our partners for many years. They assigned a book for our high school students to read. Not a bad book, but the kids read it in a week. I said, it's the last time. That is the last time anybody outside Philadelphia gonna pick our book. I'm picking the book. So the next year, I picked Randall Robinson, The Debt. The pushback from people who weren't in the program, oh, those kids is too hard. I said, this is what we're gonna do. Everybody gets a book. Every 150 of these kids, they get in a book and they get in a dictionary, and we're gonna sit with them. We walking through it. That was the standard. One of those young people was a man who's now on City Council of Philadelphia, Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah knew what I'm talking about. This is what we did. And then I'll never forget one Wednesday night, we had Temple in their big auditorium. We sitting there talking, we're going through the book. And I said, as you all are reading this book, what's coming to you? And they're talking, they're responding. And I said, does this book talk to you? Like when you're reading it, can you hear it in your head? It said, no. I said, but the more you read it, you understand it, right? I said, yeah. I said, this book is very different than Sister Soldier's Coldest Whenever. You read that book? Yeah. I said, well, she writing, it's like she's talking to you, right? Yeah. I said, exactly. This is the point. A standard requires you to meet it. The thing that you know will keep you there. Sister Soldier's book is brilliant. I read it all. I mean, I remember reading the quote. That's why I knew to ask them the question. If it's speaking to you in a way that doesn't require you to stretch, imagine if Willie Mays had not encountered players that were better than him.
That's right.
So I'm saying all that to say this.
You're right.
You know, we have. I mean, but I'm not. And
to your point, her Midnight. People didn't read it like Coldest whatever. When she's dropping in some Japanese and done
right
to another level, it's you're absolutely right, which is why we have to get out of our comfort zone. And
right.
Whether up, down, whatever you want to say, we have to bang against one another to challenge the things that we think we know, which is why we're here on Saturdays. And hopefully people grab these breadcrumbs and challenge themselves, because staying in the same space with the things you think you know is death. It's death.
No question.
And we're dying. We're dying the death of we're dying the death of a Southern Fried Chicken every single day. It's so sad. And I vacillate, Dr. Carr, I promise you, from just walking away from it all, because is it worth the time and energy? I promise you, it is exhausting to see how easily people are willing to give up everything.
Everything.
But so they don't have to do anything. Just so you don't have to do anything, you're gonna give up everything. Like,
that's
really?
right. That's right. Well, you know, it's funny you say that, Karen. It's very funny you said it, because it's true. It can be depressing. And I think that's one of the reasons why, and again, I can't resist just looking. I mean, you know, I never saw Willie Mays play in real life, but there's a reason why this man's name continues to ring out. It isn't because of what he did off the field. It was that what he did on the field was so brilliant. And then, of course, you see the iconic moments, him playing stickball in Harlem with these children, right? Him and his wife, you know, May, having parties at their house for all the kids, like Louis Armstrong and Louise Armstrong. But I bring it up for this reason, in terms of what you're saying about this is sentiment that you want to kind of give up. In 1950, I want to say 4, Sports Illustrated sent a photographer, and they put Willie Mays on the cover of Sports Illustrated, but they put him on the cover with Leo DeRocher, the manager. And most people, if you don't know Leo DeRocher from his time with the Giants, he was kind of like Willie Mays' protector on the Giants, because he knew what Willie Mays was. You may have seen him portrayed in 42, the Jackie Robinson movie with Chad Boseman. He was the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time. He was married to a movie star, and they had him, DeRocher on one side, they had the movie star, his wife, white woman, on the other side, and they had Willie Mays in the middle. And Mays, they have their hands on his arms. Within a couple of weeks, you know how they used to do, in the magazines, they would print letters to the editor. The letters from the Confederacy, and I don't call this the old Confederacy, just the Confederacy. We're still in the Confederacy. Georgia's Confederacy, Alabama's Confederacy. The letters they sent, berating them. There was a letter that came in. One guy said, cancel my subscription because you have insulted every white woman in the country. These are the grandparents of Moms for Liberty. These are the grandparents of the Stephen Millers of the world. These are the grandparents who want to cancel everything from diversity, equity, inclusion. And by the way, as you said yesterday, shout out to the sister who is now doing reparations in the city of Chicago, Carla Coupe, whose parents are from Congo. Because we got to talking between the thing. I said, where are you from? She said, oh, you know, I was raised in, but my people from Congo. I said, Congo Kinshasa or Congo Brazzaville? She said, you know Congo? I said, no, man, you're in Bochi, you're in Congo, you're from Bundu. She said, oh, we started talking. She is the chief equity and diversity officer in Chicago doing this work. And I'm saying this is brilliant, but what you're raising, when we want to stop and quit, the next cycle is Sports Illustrated, the letters came in and said, I can't believe that this country would be a place where people could write things like that because they saw Willie Mays on the cover with two white people, including a white woman who was touching his shoulder. I'm so sorry. The ignorance, there are those who are going to open their eyes once they see ignorance. So what they did in the Negro Leagues ritual this week in Alabama is going to be important. What Kendrick is doing on the stage in California is important. There, because some people are going to have their eyes awakened. But the structure we face will require you and me and all of us. Once those eyes are open, okay, let's go.
Yep.
So I know you're tired. I know you're tired. No. Listen, I know that there's an element that I don't know, because without you at the center of it, it doesn't move forward. And all I can say is, on my behalf and everybody else I know, and all these people who are in this space now that did not exist, is that we surround you, and we got to do even that much more of a job of, when those moments come, you being able to remember, no, because we're here.
So, yes, the alchemy of this only works because it's alchemy. The multiple elements.
Yes.
Right? The multiple elements, right? Like, people try to duplicate this. You can't duplicate it because you're not me.
Oh, they try.
You know, but I'm saying, good. Try. Good.
Try,
but why
please.
this works is that I'm an open, willing student who knows some things and lived a life and has read some stuff. And I'm coming in with a set of, experiences and data that's unmatched. You're coming in unmatched. We challenge each other, both on mic and off mic. There's mutual respect and love, which allows for there to be this stretching, right? Because you can't stretch in hate. You can't stretch yourself in hate. Can only be in love. So that's magic. And neither one of us have an agenda beyond the freedom and liberation of our people and knowledge. Yes. So we ain't trying to go catch a check nowhere. So we're not doing this for the gram, and we're not doing people like, well, your thing could be so much better if you just, I'm not here to do a TV show. This ain't a TV show. This is mission. And it looks different because it is different. We're not here putting lower thirds and making this thing all pretty for production so we can go get a deal with the networks and then put it out on. We're not here for that. So it is different. And unfortunately, it's not lucrative, contrary to popular belief. But this is either you do, well, of course we could do that and then go get the same money that people are demanding. But this is not about the money, because if we can't build this together, then it's not worth building.
That's right.
So thank you.
That is a word. That's the sermon. And that on the weekend, because Juneteenth is great, isn't it? We can have both weekends. So they had Juneteenth stuff. They got Juneteenth stuff this week. On a week where we talk about Black self-determination. On a week where a man-made transition, who is the gold standard, not just for baseball, but for athletics, and for how you move through the world with joy and ebullience, recognizing the challenges, but transcending them, not only in your craft, but in your life. I think you just gave us the sermon. We have to do it together. Not just for Rube Foster, who wanted to have the teams in the own institution, not just for Josh Gibson, who died heartbroken like y'all recognize, but for every human being on the planet, not just for Reginald Martinez Jackson, who was choking up remembering that, who said it's hard to come back here, but for everyone, Jabril Greer, the head groundskeeper, for Roy Wood Jr., for all those for Miles College, that is now going to play its home games at Rick Wood Field. That Black college where Willie Mays grew up across the street from Miles College. And now that college will play, that HBCU with a Black woman president, they're going to play their home games at Rick Wood Field. We're doing this because not only is it possible, we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice as a species. And so you preached us a word. We love you. We love you.
Just want to happy birthday. Just erect the name of Octavia Estelle Butler.
Please.
Born this day in 1947. She made it to 58 years. We are both older than she is.
That's right.
She spent 58 years on this earth, died alone. Died alone for a couple of days. No one even knew she was dead. So if you can get from The Coldest Winter Ever to one of Octavia Butler's books, any of them, if you have a young person in your life and you can, and they like certain kinds of books, introduce them to Octavia Butler today. just in honor of a woman that spent a lot of time in her own headspace, ostracized and set aside and not fitting in and being different than everybody around her. But to this day, I think was prophetic in the
Oh,
world
she
that we're
was.
living in. And she saw,
More and more, apparently. It's
yeah,
like now it's not even prophetic. Like, were you reporting from the future that you have a
yes,
time machine that came
yes,
back?
yes. So
And if you have a
power.
subscription to Narrative, go to the archives with office hours. And if you're reading the Parables series, go back and listen to those conversations with our brother John Jennings, who came in
Yeah.
and spent that time with us. I mean, yes, let's raise her. Ashe, Ashe.
Yes,
Yeah,
I say.
absolutely.
And Larry Daniels and I, Larry Daniel Favors and I had a conversation about Octavia Butler as well. I will drop the
Yes,
link in Narrative Nubia for YouTube
please.
for the YouTube people as well. But yeah,
Yes.
that and so let's keep this brother because I feel like this was
Mm.
something I didn't expect. It put everybody on their ass too, because no one
Yeah, it
expected
did.
them to say that. They just sat there stunned.
That's
But it
right.
but it captured where we are, where we might
Prof,
be heading.
and Prof, time passes so fast. It's hard to believe Reggie Jackson is 78 years old.
Mm,
We both saw him in his prime. We
yeah.
saw him get ready to beat Billy Martin's Mickey Mantle ass in the dugout. And who stopped him? The first black player for the New York Yankees who was on the coaching staff, Elston Howard. Stop Reggie Jackson from beating Billy Martin's ass. Because you're not gonna talk to me that way. This is a man who I'm not too sure you want to say anything to him now, because it seems like he got some ass whippers he
Oh
still
my
want to
God.
hand out
I saw
before.
Roy posted a picture of him. I was like, he got down kind of low. Them D's still good.
Did you see that?
I
That's
was
the
like,
picture I was talking
man,
about. That's right.
he got some good knees. Man, yeah, I think Reggie Jackson could do some work right now.
No question.
All right. Well,
Oh,
listen,
love you.
safe travels. Love
You
you
too.
immensely. Love
Love you.
everybody. Enjoy your Saturday. We'll see
Indeed.
everybody in class. Office hours on Monday. Some of
Monday
you all
night
will be on Monday on the Karen Hunter Show.
on the
And
Karen Hunter Show.
Friday's Urban View Mornings. Go on the SiriusXM app, download it, listen on demand. This show
Let's
is amazing.
please,
Larie's show is
please.
amazing. Clay's show. We got some
No,
amazing content. Urban
no
View.
question. And just to be clear, because I didn't know this. Well, I didn't think about it. And Lamont brought it up. If you have the app, you can listen anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, yep. The
Oh,
app
so
is
there we go. So it is indeed worldwide. I mean,
yes,
come on,
yes,
y'all.
yes. You had a Canadian caller on
Sure
Friday.
did,
Yeah,
sure did. Who said we don't even rock with Drake like that, which was hilarious.
yes.
So, love you, dear. Travel safe, be well. You sound strong. It sound like we
No,
surrounded. We sent.
I'm having an allergic reaction, so it's not like I'm sick, but I'm just trying to figure out how to reset my body, which I have to do. So we all have to take some time. It's just a reminder that I probably need to sit my ass down.
We all have to, no question. Well,
Sit
that's
down
the
for a
case.
minute. Yeah.
Sit for a minute. Sit for a minute. We send you all our love and all our energy. Love you.
I say love you.
I share. See you later.
All right.
Finally, they let me in there. He said, "We're going to go to the diner and eat hamburgers. We'll go where we're wanted." Fortunately, I had a manager, Johnny McNamara, that if I couldn't eat, thank you. If I couldn't eat in the place, nobody would eat. We'd get food to travel. If I couldn't stay in a hotel, they'd drive to the next hotel and find a place where I could stay. Had it not been for Raleigh Fingers, Johnny McNamara, Dave Duncan, Joe and Sharon Rudy, I slept on their couch 3-4 nights a week for about a month and a half. Finally, they were threatened that they would burn our apartment complex down unless I got out. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. The year I came here, Bull Connor was the sheriff the year before. And they took minor league baseball out of here because in 1963, the Klan murdered 4 black girls, children, in 11, 12, 14 years old at a church here and never got indicted. It was, they were from the Klan. Life magazine did a story on them like they were being honored. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. At the same time, had it not been for my white friends, had it not been for a white manager and Rudy, Fingers, and Duncan, and Lee Myers, I would have never made it. I was too physically violent. I was ready to physically fight some. I'd have got killed here because I'd have beat someone's ass, and you'd have saw me in an oak tree somewhere.
Reggie,
Wow.
I